You have to change your mindset about what you think a lot of money is. Because if you're coming from a paucity mindset or a deficit mindset, you're going to be broadcasting that in your business. So you have to think up to the level that you want to attract in.
Our ever-changing world calls upon the most courageous, resilient, and relentless of us to face its most extraordinary challenges. To help you embark on this journey, we present the Impactful Coaching Podcast, your oasis for inspiration and a beacon to spark the fires of greatness within you. I'm Joseph. I will be your ally in this journey to empower your potential. Join us each week as we dive deep into the heart of ambition, drive, and success to unravel compelling stories of daring leaders who dreamed, struggled, and achieved victory. Our journey begins now. How is everybody doing? This is the Impactful Coaching Podcast. My name is Joseph, and I am here today with Carole Ann Rice of Real Coaching Co. Carole, good afternoon to you. I know it's 3 p.m. in the UK. It's over here 10 a.m. in the morning here in Toronto. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
Really good. We're having a strange September heat wave. We
are too.
We had a terrible summer. It was like November in June and July, and then August it was a washout of rain and flooding and great people putting their heating on. And suddenly all the kids go back to school. Hey, let's turn it up to 32 degrees. All the parents are saying, what happened over the summer? We had to pay to go everywhere to entertain the children. Now they're all back. Sun comes out.
And now the kids are coming to the parents. Can we have COVID again? We don't want to go to school. It's too hot.
Please let us not.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, definitely a cost-benefit analysis on that one. Just a little bit of housekeeping on my end. For those of you who usually are used to the green background, I'm staying at my parents' place while my new place is all set up. Internet wasn't working there. And for those of you wondering what technical problems I encountered, the answer was all of them. I encountered all the technical problems. Microphone didn't work. Zoom locked me out. Emails weren't letting me on. Forgot to bring like one half of my power supply. So I had to prospect my entire parents' house and see if there was a comparable wire for it. And thank goodness we live in an age where everybody has 100 different wires for 100 different things. So here we go. That's what 10 years of experience gets you, is making mistakes that you've made 6 times already and lead us knowing how to fix them this time. So I got that out of my system. First thing that I would love to do with you, Carole, is just find out what you do and what you're up to these days.
I just wanted to say that Mercury is in retrograde and all technical equipment go bananas. And we had a blue moon here. I don't know if you have the same blue moon thing there, but that meant that all tech went down. And last week, my internet went down. My computer screen went black.
The moon was responsible for that.
It's Mercury. They just say it just kind of throws the tech up in the air, but at least we salvaged it. So just that might be one reason. But what I'm up to is I've been a life coach for 22 years. I was one of the first in the UK. And back then, if I said to someone, hey, guess what? I've retrained to become a life coach. I said, all right, you come jogging with me. So that's a personal trainer. Oh, well, then you can help me choose some wallpaper. No, that's an interior designer. What do you do then? And I'd be like, well, I'm a life coach. I've never heard it. Sounds very American. So what? There's nothing wrong with that. And now, 22 years later, most people have heard of what a life coach is. Back in the 1980s, a personal trainer was for the rich and the famous. Now you can get a personal trainer at the YMCA. Now people have access to life coaches. It's not just a luxury service. A lot of companies are giving their staff coaching. A lot of people have coaching at different stages in their life. So I've been through the kind of tsunami of what was it to great, I know what it is now, and well done for sticking with it for 22 years when no one knew what the heck you did. So that's what I do. I coach. Because I've been doing it for so long, I can put quite a big price tag on my private packages. But, about 12 years ago, I was going to a networking event, and I saw that a lot of the coaches were not earning a lot of money. They'd come to a networking event and I didn't see them the next month. So where's Sarah gone? Oh, well, she went back and got a job. Oh, really? The coaching wasn't working. They couldn't get clients. And then one of my clients said he had an idea for an academy, and maybe I should think of something like that. I thought, no, that sounds like climbing Everest in high heels. That's too big a challenge. I can't do that. And with a bit of help and a lot of support, finally got there. And it did take about 18 months to 2 years to pull it all together. And then I launched Pure Coaching Academy, which is basically, I stand for coaching excellence. And I want people to be trained properly and earn good money from their coaching. That's what I'm really passionate about. Being super world-class coaches and having abundant practice from it.
I've always been somewhat hesitant just to really ask for for a figure, but I think I'm just going to break through that little limiting belief factor today. Would you be willing to state what is the earning potential that people really should be expecting once they've reached that accreditation?
Well, I get this. I get asked this a lot, especially from my students. Well, how much should I put on my packages? A lot of it depends on self-belief and self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, some experience behind you helps. You can't just graduate and then the next day I charge $5,000 an hour. You've got nothing to back it up. However, in America, some coaches are earning $10,000 a day. I know one coach, he charges $1,000 an hour, and he lives in Barcelona now. He sits on the beach. He has a client on the laptop, goes surfing, comes back. You do that a few times a week, you're earning some nice money and having a fabulous lifestyle. I do have a 6-figure income from my business. I say to actually on the course, I ask people, I go around the rooms, I get about 20, 25 students on how much are you going to charge for your coaching when you graduate? £25. Okay, and I write it all down. Bill says £25. Steve, £50. Okay. Sarah, 45. And then you'll get someone, I'm going to charge £100. Okay. And then you go around the room. Okay, well, I'm going to try and get you to charge a bit more. So I ask them all to think about everything in their lives that they've ever done that's been of merit. They pass the driving test, they speak languages, they were a swimming champion, they did a degree, they do first aid, or whatever it is that they've done. They play the trumpet, they can sing on stage. And I give them 20 minutes to write out this incredible kind of document of all their life achievements. And I say to them, when you have a client sitting in front of you, it's not just the hour, they're paying for all of your life history that you bring to that hour, all of your experience, plus the course you've just been on and the coaching and the training. Now, how much you're going to charge? Bill, $100 an hour, £100 an hour. And we go around, and if one of them was to still be, I'm still going to just charge about 35. Come on now, you've got to model confidence if you're a coach. So I get them all within an hour to have upscaled what they're going to charge. I think a lot of people concentrate on, and rightly so, how to be a brilliant coach. And they get hung up on all the tools and techniques, NLP, CBT, hypnotherapy, whatever new thing is out there. I'm going to add that into the mix. Yeah, you can. Brilliant set of services. The hardest thing of all is getting clients.
I think the idea too of only charging a set amount of money, which £35, £50, it's not a lot. Although from that person's point of view, it might seem like a lot, comparable to say what the minimum wage happens to be. But it's also a matter of understanding that if you're not charging people the right amount of money, their motivation to take on those changes, take on those challenges is diminished as well. It's one thing to put in £1,000, £10,000 for a coach and say, I invested quite a bit of money into this. I'm now more motivated to make it worth my while than says, well, you know what, this is about the same price that I paid for dinner. It's like, I don't think it shows how important that those lessons really are to the person.
I completely agree. And obviously on the course, to get training, we suggest to our students have pro bono clients. They're usually the hardest clients you're ever going to have because they don't have the financial buy-in, and they'll come with strange problems. They won't show up on time. They miss sessions, and they're like, "Oh, this isn't working for me." You put a small fee on that, they'll show up. You put a larger fee, they'll do the homework. They'll get the results, and that's true. If you undersell it, there's a kind of lukewarm buy-in here. It's got to be worthwhile. It's not gold plated, it's real gold. Doesn't look a bit like gold, it is gold. And that's what you're paying for, And also, if you think it's a lot of money to charge £200 an hour, which is sort of my flat rate for my one-to-one coaching, there's someone out there buying a bottle of wine for that in the city. You have to change your mindset about what you think a lot of money is. Because if you're coming from a paucity mindset or a deficit mindset, you're going to be broadcasting that in your business. So you have to think up to the level that you want to attract in.
One of the things that you're right is I work with all sorts of amazing clients relevant to what we're discussing now, right? From the super rich to supermodels, from CEOs to startup entrepreneurs, from scientists to students to stay-at-home moms. So it couldn't be a more diverse array of The neutral word that I think is fair to use here is status. You do have the status of someone who runs a company versus the status of someone who runs a household. Important in different ways, but obviously the impact is measured in different quantities. So what I would like to hear is, are there certain practices that are common across the board? And then likewise, are there specific tools and techniques that you would use for someone in that high pressure, high status situation versus the less, but still somewhat pressure filled role of running a home?
But the bottom line is, as much as we'd like to think we are all amazingly unique, and we are, there are some commonalities in the problems that all human beings suffer with. I probably should write the book of the 7 number one things we all suffer with, and I could probably alchemize it down. And it doesn't matter whether you're a student or the CEO or a superstar. It all comes down to the same things: is your humanity, and the things that's holding you back is confidence, fear, people pleasing, fear of rejection, what will people say, social anxiety, what if it doesn't work, what will people say if I fail dismally, I don't like myself, I've got low self-esteem. So they're all kind of, but that can be a CEO quaking in his boots thinking there's a younger guy coming up who's about to take my job, I can't keep up. Or it could be the mum at home or dad at home thinking I've lost my courage to go back to work. It's fear, and I'm afraid fear is the enemy of humanity. It comes in all different horrible, ugly disguises, but the bottom line is I'm frightened of being rejected and not being good enough, and it will show up in all sorts of ways, of either hating other people, envy, resentment, fear, people pleasing. It all comes down to that. So no, there are no different strategies. The only time I use different strategies is when I worked at the London School of Economics, and I was on the team of coaches there, and you were given a specific brief. So everyone would have had their appraisals, and this guy's suffering with communication problems at work, or timekeeping, or he's not managing to do the work in the time given, he's got deadline problem. Then you would go in and coach specifically amongst the brief that you were given, post appraisal and feedback. So you were sort of expected to deliver results on a particular subject within a certain amount of sessions. But mostly it's a broad spectrum, but often within minutes, because I've been doing this for so long, I can quickly identify with anyone having a discovery call with me is what the real problem is behind what they're saying.
Have you had situations where the brief that you received was perhaps like a symptom of the issue, but once you actually started working with the client, it turns out that there is something different going on? Maybe it's deeper, or maybe it's a lateral issue where what the person was trying to describe just wasn't quite exactly what was going on.
Joseph, it's never what's on the surface. I'm sure your other coaches.
Oh yeah, it's like it's an amazing theme that has been brought up. It's just the idea that like what you think is the issue is always a symptom, and it's a signal for what's going on, but it's very rarely the actual problem.
I mean, a very inexperienced coach would come in at a different angle. Say if someone was routinely late for work and was on written warnings from the management. A rookie coach might say something like, well, what time are you setting your alarm, and you better get a better alarm clock, and it's not that kind of remedial just go and buy something. It's are you self-sabotaging here? You're on written warnings. What are you doing at night time? Oh, well, they go on a casino, or they're watching Netflix till 3 a.m. What's the reason for that? Well, I come in late and I want to have a nice evening to myself. Well, you are sabotaging your health then, because you're staying up till 3 because you want to have a nice evening, but you've got to get up at 7. You overslept. Also, maybe fundamentally, you feel you don't deserve promotion. You feel you're going to be pushed out anywhere, and you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy here by endangering yourself. So it's never the alarm clock or what time you go to bed. It's all the behavior around being late, and self-care, and diet, and drinking too much, or eating junk food, and just not having any kind of motivation. So as a coach, that one thing, being late for work, we would look at all of the possible strings and elements that could be leading up to that. You start correcting them, and then you start to see the change.
On the flip side, I thought I'm going to ask this. This is really for the first time that I've asked this on the program. And keep in mind, I feel like this is more for fun. But I just want to throw it out there anyways. But was there ever like an opposite situation where it turns out that like we were trying to dig deep and then it turns out, oh, actually no, this was a more surface level correction. Maybe we overanalyzed it, just because you get into that habit of always trying to figure out what is going on beneath the surface, and it turns out the cigar was just a cigar. Have you ever had a situation like that?
Yes, sometimes it's not that complicated, or they just simply didn't like their boss, or they'd had an affair with someone in the office, and there was all sorts of other things. And it wasn't that at all. Or they weren't aware that other people thought this, and their appraisal came up, and I wasn't aware that I had communication problems. Some people who are very introverted don't realize they're supposed to do more. And some people who are very extroverted don't realize they're supposed to rein it in a bit. And they think they're being absolutely fine and all it needs is a small tweak. But yes, sometimes it can be the absolutely obvious thing. They just didn't have the awareness for it,
Mm-hmm. I have one more for you along these lines. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, I encountered every single technical problem that I could probably have in setting up a satellite office. And if I had to deal with this situation 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I probably would have just been like, I'm sorry, Carole, I got to cancel today. I cannot physically do this episode. And so the experience that I built up, thankfully, I was able to, the show was able to go on. So with the 22 years of experience that you've built up, have you had any like emergencies or urgent situations that from your particular experience you were able to handle?
They're always round the corner. You can never schedule in or know when one's going to come up. I
True.
I had a workshop booked, and a few people have said I can't attend, and they paid quite a lot. It's £200 to attend. But could you record it for me? But I won't be attending, but I'd like a recording. So as far as I knew, nobody was coming in person on the workshop, so I could just. So I was thinking, shall I do it at 3 o'clock? I mean, it's just going to be a recording. And I did, and then there were 6 people in the waiting room. And because their payment and their notification hadn't gone through Go Cardless, and I was just going to sit here and play it. I've got another computer, just look at some Netflix stuff. I thought, no, I will do it at 3 o'clock because I said it'll keep my diary in order. And if I hadn't, there would have been 6 people waiting with a blank screen. So what happened to Carole Ann? There's always something like that. And as you say, tech problems. The other day, everything went black in here, and there was no reason why. It's Mercury again. It's always there. Wrong day, wrong time, wrong platform. But I don't panic so much now. And I think this is what I try and tell my clients. What you find humiliating or embarrassing or shameful or awkward about yourself, if you bring it into the day, there's nothing that shame loves more. It's like a toxic mushroom. It's to sit in a dark room and get bigger and bigger and no daylight go on it. If you expose that shame or that toxic mushroom to sunlight and attention and say, hey, guess what? I am useless at tech. Instead of, oh my God, I'm a bad person. They're going to see through me. They'll see I'm useless. I'm unprofessional. If you just said, I'm really bad at tech, I'm sorry about this, or I wasn't able to do this, I didn't know, being frightened of saying I didn't know, I don't know, can you tell me? Once you've done enough things and you have enough confidence, anything that goes wrong, you're good at covering for it, not going into meltdown like you said a few years ago. You thought, I can't do this. You just say, I can do it. It's just gone wrong. Someone help me, and apologize. But don't turn it in on yourself as if somehow you're to blame, you're at fault, you're lacking. Shame loves darkness. It hates being broadcast. You could say, I'm shy, I didn't know, I'm socially uncomfortable. You say that and you get people on side with you.
And it's why I wanted to bring it up. A, because I thought it was hilarious, but B, it was a show of transparency in that we may not always know how exactly we're valued in the eyes of others. And so, for my audience who might think maybe I'm impeccable and nothing has ever gone wrong. I mean, no, guys, trust me, things do happen. And I find that it actually becomes a source of confidence. It's not the sole source of confidence, but it is there, I think, to be ensconced in those disasters that we're fearful of, deal with it, and then come out the other side and go, well, actually, now that I dealt with that, okay, yeah, I feel a lot better about it now.
That's great. Self-forgiveness is the key. It moves you
Hmm.
forward. If you just think, oh no, I was so bad at that, I'm never doing it again, then you're back in that place of shame. But if you say, yeah, I goofed up, I was wrong, I wasn't very good at it, I can cringe at it now, move on and give
Hmm.
yourself like unconditional self-forgiveness and compassion. We all goof up, we all make mistakes, move on. But don't let it, I can never do this again. That's the worst place to go to. Have
Hmm.
another go.
I have one more question that I wanted to ask on the subject of confidence, and then I have that backstory question that I've chambered for a little while now. So, one of the things that I like doing, and just keep in mind that like I never want to put the spotlight so bright on my guests that I think they have to be the arbiter of the answer to this. It's more just like, what would you define it as? So, for instance, I've talked to somebody about what is mindset. We talk about mindset all the time, but what is mindset? Or when we talk about certain issues, like we have an anxiety coach, it's like, what is anxiety? So, taking everything that we've talked about so far, what is confidence? Like, what is this actual thing that we value so much, we chase after, and yet some people, maybe they're the most confident person in the world, but they don't even have a home, versus people who have no confidence and yet they're running an entire company. So the visual and the data that we should have to support this doesn't seem to actually connect with how a person feels confident. So what is it?
It's a good question,
Thank you.
and I'm glad it's a brilliant question. I'm glad you asked it because it's kind of my specialist subject is confidence, and I am a recovering shy person, I should say. I used to sit at school like that, so please don't look at me, no one look at me.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all been there. A set of twins are born exactly the same genetics, born on the same day, same parents. One twin is really confident, the other one isn't. Why? Why is it that some people have, exactly the same life experiences and they're super confident and the other one isn't? Well, let's look at the negative twin, the one who isn't confident. He or she's thinking things like, I'm not good enough. I will probably fail. When I walk into this restaurant, everyone will look at me and think badly of me. I probably won't get the waiter's attention. People will reject me. When I have a go at things, I inevitably fail. And if I do, I feel terribly about myself. So I better not try anything. The positive twin thinks, I'm okay. I'll have a go at that. If I do fail, I'll be okay because I'll pull myself up and have another go. I have resilience. I'm quite good at running. I'm good at making people laugh. When I go in here, I'll talk to the waiter. They have a sense of self-value. They know they're good stuff. The negative or underconfident twin is thinking, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough in me. And they project fearful thoughts of it will all fall apart, I will lose, I will feel embarrassed. And it is all about self-talk. And we believe, when we believe things, we become them. So people don't want me, you walk in a room, you've got that attitude, no one will want me here. You're kind of broadcasting like a lighthouse, the message, I'm not worthy, you won't
Mm-hmm.
like me, I don't like me. But the confident person is like, yeah, I think people will be okay. Okay, that guy didn't like me over there. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. They have a bounce back ability. And it's not necessarily what they've got, the big car or the big house. It's just a sense of self-esteem. And of course, you can build on that. One of the things I ask my clients to do is keep a small notebook, small enough for a jacket pocket or your backpack, your purse. And it's called my Big Me Up book. It bigs you up. I'll ask my clients to write 50 to 100 amazing things about themselves in it. The women go, I could do 5, and men go, what, 100? Yeah, well, only 100? No, just joking. But they say I'm struggling with 5, and I do a form, an intake form for and I say, what are your top skills? And I say, well, you put some on there. Let's start. Do you bake a good cake? Do you smell nice? Yeah, people say that. Do you look good in navy? Yeah. You've been a good friend to your friends. Yeah, so let's go. We've got 10 now. We've got 15. We've got 20. Let's get another 80. Ask your friends, your partner, your mother and father, what's good about you? Because if you don't believe in it, you're an empty. It's like a sieve. You're pouring. People say you look great. You've done well. Straight through the sieve and out. None of it's being retained.
Mm-hmm.
Confident people retain the good information. I ran a good race. I got a medal for my swimming. I'm a good guy, and they retain it. But the underconfident person, they were just being generous. They said I look nice, but they didn't really mean it. I've got the job by luck. They minimize their good stuff. So if you keep a Big Me Up book, and you keep the Big Me Up book forever, continuously adding compliments, things you notice about yourself. This is black and white evidence of your brilliance. Having a rough day, pick me up, but right. Oh yeah. Of course I am. Right, I'm going into that meeting now. You restore yourself. Underconfident people just throw away all the good stuff.
So it has changed some of how I have understood the issue with lack of confidence, and I think what it comes down to, for one, is the idea that a underconfident person views a confident person as someone who is averse to struggle or problems, disasters, whatever it is, when it's not the ability to avoid it, it's the ability to absorb it and then recover from it, and that resilience. So everyone is facing the same problems. It's just a matter of who is able to filter it out properly, like, I don't know, like a liver filters out alcohol. I'm pretty sure it's the liver that does that. I'm not the best organic biologist, but some people are able to filter it out, learn what we can learn from it. One of the things that I like to offer to people is the idea that the antidote always comes from the poison. There's a lot of evidence in nature that whenever we extract venom from spiders or from scorpions, we use that same venom to make the antidote that saves people's lives from the thing that they're bitten by. And I think it's really important for us to be able to withstand negative information, but extract whatever good comes out of it, because you can either take something good from it or you take nothing good from it. You might as well try, right? Because you're dealing with it either way.
It's a big subject, Joseph. You know, Joseph Frankel's Man's Search for Meaning. It was about finding meaning even in the concentration camps. That's what kept him alive. It kept him sane. It kept him as healthy as he could be on the meager rations. It was putting his mind in a place of distance from the horrors in front of him and keeping his thoughts on the positive, even if it was a bird he could hear. And it's that bounce back ability. It's that resilience. It's not turning it inward if you made an error. It's shame is like, I'm a bad thing. Doing something wrong, I did a bad thing, but shame is, I am the bad thing. So yeah, okay, I did a bad thing. I didn't bring my cable for the laptop and we can't do the presentation today. I did a bad thing. I goofed up. But it's like, shame is, oh, I'm so useless. I'm utterly terrible. And that's where the underconfident person goes, I'm never putting myself in this situation again. But on your piece about the venom, I love the phrase, the quote, all wisdom is healed pain. Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, it may have hurt, but if you learn from it, you get the golden nugget of wisdom. And who doesn't want to be a wise guy or a wise girl? You know, it's like, hey, I'm the wise guy around here. Because you've earned it, you've had the hardships, but yeah, okay, I'm not going to harden my heart to everyone who's treated me bad in love. I've learned from it. I've got wisdom about it now. Or, okay, that job was really bad for me and I got made redundant. What have I learned? I've learned it was a completely bad fit and it didn't sit with my values. Or you could say I'm unlovable and unemployable.
I'm taking a moment to absorb. I mean, anytime that I hear about some of the atrocities that had gone on in World War II, it takes a moment to appreciate how fortunate that we are to live in the world that I think had that wisdom that healed from what had happened, and to know that in the future generations will continue to live in the wisdom that is from the pain that is still being inflicted to this day, because the world is far from a perfect place. So, all right. So I do want to shift gears, because this one I've been just excited to talk about. So I read through your backstory, and not that it's a competition or anything, but your backstory is quite substantive. I think it's the longest one that I've read so far, and so I do appreciate that side of it. And I encourage people to read the story for themselves, especially if you want a good framework for how to tell a backstory. And one part of it that I guess, I don't know, I wouldn't say I was surprised to see, certainly delighted to see it, was that one thing that changed your worldview was your exposure to punk. Now, I don't know if that necessarily, obviously probably had a lot to do with music, but I think there was much more to it than that. It was the scene, it was the movement, it was the ideas being involved. So, and I have a deep appreciation for punk in two ways. I appreciate the individualism, the acceptance of it, self-actualization, but you also notice that punk is also, and this is coming from my creative point of view, is that punk is often used as a way to create fantasy worlds where it tries to have a completely different framework for technology. So steampunk, for instance, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the idea that all these massive, almost contraption-looking devices, airships, cyberpunk, for the idea of going far into the future, where now all future tech is running the world. And then there's lots of different variations of this. Like even one that I've have as like a vaulted project for a long time is the idea of horror punk, where you live in like a zombie apocalypse for years and you just sort of adapted to this world. And I think the idea is that like, yeah, this stuff doesn't actually make sense, but the idea of punk is to still commit to the idea and try to make it as believable and realistic as possible. And that screw you, it's the reality that we want for our story. And so that's the appreciation that I have for it. But I'd love to hear about how it impacted you, and if it still possibly has any impact even today.
I think once you're a punk in the 1970s, as I was, you always have the punk in your heart and soul. So I may look like a nice lady in a floral dress, but underneath it, I'm leathers and spike collars and all sorts of things I used to wear. In fact, here's my angel on my shoulder here. There's David Bowie. Who wasn't a punk, but he was certainly started the revolution of individualism and daring to be incredibly different. I actually got thrown off a bus once for wearing straight leg trousers. Everyone else was wearing trousers like the Eagles. They thought I was such a challenge to society. They removed me at 17 years old from a bus. I had my hair cropped to a 1/4 inch short. And I went to art college. It was basically the music and the movement at the time was so different, and it shook up all the kind of complacent music that was in the charts, the terrible poverty in England in the 1970s. And it became a political, fashion and art and music movement. And it was like, when you hear it, it's like your soul kind of goes, yeah, I'm in. And it was angry at the time. Some of it was very melodic, you know, the Ramones in America, the Stranglers, Johnny Rotten and the Sex Pistols here, Blondie, different types of punk. But it was different. It was so different then. It was quite shocking, and people were like, "Wow, look at this!" It shook up the world, and I think I sometimes embarrass my children with my punk attitude, and we don't talk like that now, Mum, when I'm queuing at the cinema. Mm-hmm. Okay, other people like. I've got to be a bit more PC, because essentially, I think it's that kind of rebel yell in you, and that never goes, because you've been through the years of being thrown off a bus for wearing straight leg trousers and having a bit of blue food colouring in your hair or whatever. And now you walk down the street, there's a million kind of representations of tattoos, piercings, hair, Mohicans, all kind of amazing outfits. And they don't get thrown off buses. And it's much more accepting now, but it was very, very challenging at the time. And I kind of liked it. I needed it. It needed me. And I went to art college, and it was kind of like a bit of a teenage soul savior.
I think the idea of just contrarianism is one of the tenets of punk, and a movie that totally like defined my lived experience from like grade 11 all the way through to college was Reservoir Dogs. And it was the first time that I had seen a movie about men in suits. They look very cool, but they're also gangsters, and they're violent. And like 10 minutes after the opening sequence, things really go wrong. So it wasn't a bad influence in the way that it only glamorizes violence and crime, the way like a lot of movies and a lot of music had done, or comic books, anything, like any medium, right? Now I'm trying to single any medium out. But what it did glamorize it to a point, and then it also showed you how terrible things can go. It showed you the pain that comes from getting shot. It showed you mistrust. It showed you how criminals look down on police as less than people. So it was a mix of both, and that's what I respect about it. But the cool side was men in suits, and for me in high school, I went to not the best high school in terms of class. It was one of those Catholic high schools that they would wear the rosary like a necklace, that kind of high school. And the idea of actually wearing a suit and slicking my hair back was the contrarianism, because everybody else was dressing kind of wildly and doing as they pleased. So it wasn't so much about like just, oh yeah, of course suits are typically the indicator of someone who is part of the corporate world, but in my personal view, it was just a matter of like showing class and showing poise in an environment that was severely lacking in that. So again, it was just that going opposite of what everybody else was doing.
I love that, because when people used to say to me, "Oh, you're a punk," I'd say, "I don't have a label. We didn't have labels. Don't label me." You could have worn a tweed suit and being a punk. If you were being contrarian and oppositional, that was your take on it. And it was more of an attitude of, I do not comply to what you think I am. I do what I want to do, and you don't put a label on me. That's the punk spirit. It didn't necessarily mean you had to have a Mohican haircut and safety pins in your ears. It could be, you could be William Burroughs and a punk. You could be a poet and wear a suit, as you say, or a floral dress. It's your attitude. It's something about, I don't go along with the flow and I stand for individuality. But it was in a way that was quite oppositional or frightening to people at the time. When you look back, it wasn't that frightening at all. It wasn't frightening. It was just different, you know. Challenging to people, I guess.
Relative. Like, some people would obviously be frightened by it, but because they were so ensconced in their worldview that they couldn't view it. I for one, am just grateful to be able to kind of grow up in that crowd, because it didn't really matter who I was. Everybody was just happy to be around everybody else. So that's an experience that stands out to me. And I'll say, and I just want to give one quick recommendation. One film that truly embodies more punk rock, but the all of the things that we've talked about was 1985's Return of the Living Dead. That movie, from beginning to end, is pure punk rock in every part of the word. And it just reminded me, because we both mentioned people in the suits, and one of the characters, part of the friend group, is in a suit, and you would think he wouldn't be accepted by the others, but like, we don't care, just don't be a dick, right? That's all you have to do to really be accepted. So now to tie this together, I think the idea of challenging the established conventional norms as one of the tenets of punk, I noticed that, one aspect of your platform is that while you act as a coach, you also act as a challenger. Now, I think that to some degree is embedded in each coach that I talk to, so it's not like everybody else has been lacking of it. But this is the first time that I've seen someone really like openly state that and talk about how important it is to be challenged on that. So, and I think the contrarianism it has informed that. So, A, what's your reaction to that, and B, how would you go about challenging your clients? What are some of the ways that you feel like you need to sort of act as the contrarian to what they're going through?
You wouldn't use me as your coach if you hadn't read some of the stuff about me. So I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. So you kind of know what you're getting. And I do respect that everyone has their own, way of wanting to be coached. But on a couple of memorable occasions, I was coaching a Gothic poetess, and she wore the big black, kind of zombie boots, black hair and black lipstick and black eye. And I was thinking, regular homework for her won't do. So I was working in central London, and I said, I think on the embankment of the Thames, there's this statue. It's an obelisk. It was flown over. It wasn't flown. It was come over in a boat from Egypt 200 years ago, which it did. It was hit by a thunderstorm, and the obelisk fell to the bottom of the sea. It was a gift of Queen Victoria. They rescued it from the bottom of the ocean. She's watching me like this, rescued from the bottom of the ocean, and it's on the banks of the Thames. It's called Cleopatra's Needle. On either side of the needle are sphinxes that came from Egypt as well. I think you need to go and sit there, and I think there's a message for you. And she said, I like the sound of this. And I said, in the base of the obelisk, there's a time capsule, and it's got a Victorian doll and money and a microscope. And she went there and she said, I've got the message. What I wanted her to do was have a bit of time out and to be peaceful. But I wasn't going to say go walk around the park. She needed something far more dramatic. It worked, but she didn't say, Carole Ann, that's completely mad homework. She came back, I've got the message. And I was thinking, I wonder what it was. Maybe it was an ancient message from the Egyptians. Other people, I call them out terribly. Oh yeah, I can't do this. So what would happen if you did do this? And I play this ridiculous movie for them. And then the guy does this and a big green tongue rolls out, does it? If that's not going to happen, you ask your boss if you can take it. And he's like, what are you really scared of? And I add a sort of monstrous story to it so they see that actually their fears are a bit kind of overblown. And sometimes if I'm doing it on Zoom, I literally go, do you want me to actually come into your home and do this for you? And they're like, oh, and I have to say, like, no, I will, I'll come round. And they're like, no, Carole Ann, I'll do my homework. So I kind of try to use even this little area here as let's have fun with it. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to shake you out of this reverie of not having the life you want. It's not even a reverie, it's a kind of stuck place. And if you need to, I'll come round and bring the boys with me and we'll march you up the road to do your homework, and they're like, no, I'll do it. So it's kind of like having fun with it, being a bit kind of challenging, being different, being humorous. You have to, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'd never do it on someone who was sensitive, or if I think it's going to work, it does work. And they often say to me afterwards, that really changed it for me when you said that, or you shook me up, and okay, it was good. I can be a hand to hold and say very little, and just be be a safe space, really.
I would define myself as a sensitive person, again, coming from my creative background and being enmeshed in the artistic world, media and film and all of that. And yeah, there is like a little goes a long way when dealing with sensitive people, is that what something that can be so abrasive that while it's effective, it takes a long time for it to truly be processed and turn into a lesson like that. Although I will say that there have been times where like I was treated pretty roughly like by some of my teachers in college, for instance, and we had a sketch teacher who she just like went off on everybody. She was being very, very, very harsh, very critical. But I still look back on her and think, man, she was the best teacher that I had in the whole program. Top 3 at least. And the reason why, it wasn't that I was singled out, it was that because she didn't treat me any differently because of my heightened neuroses. She went as hard on me as she was everybody. And so there was a lot of respect that I had gained both for myself and for her, because she wasn't like trying to go soft on me or anything like that. And it communicates to a person that, hey, look, I believe that you can handle this. So a part of dealing with it is actually dealing with it and seeing how you come out the other side.
Before I became a coach, I was a Samaritan, that worked with suicidal people on the phones. And so you don't see people then, some people phone up, they're feeling like, they want to take their lives. Mm-hmm. Holding the silence on a phone is, or you could be on the phone for hours with someone and you say, are you still there? Tap the phone if you are, and they tap the phone. I have no discomfort whatsoever of being entirely silent. And I have clients who will take a long time to process something and answer me. They'll put their head down and they'll be thinking, I'm not going to crash their silence. I'm not uncomfortable with it. I'll just wait until they're ready to speak. Some people hate a silence. So I'm not always the full on. I just showed you. I can just sit there. I usually put my hands like this, ready to receive. Just be really patient. And even that is very therapeutic for some people. Just having someone sit with them until they're ready to process and say what they want to say.
Was I tempted to actually just be silent for a minute here, just as an act of solidarity? Yes, I was tempted to do it. Okay, there it was. So this is actually a question that I ask pretty much everybody, and I think your point of view on it would be especially profound, which is maybe what were some of the lessons learned early on in your coaching career, some course correction, some that didn't go so well, and then how you maybe had to adjust your teaching style over the years.
And I say this to my students as well, don't be too rah-rah. And what I mean by that is, oh, you did the homework, that's amazing, oh, that's really brilliant, like almost patronizingly cheerleading someone for doing the smallest thing. It's not sincere. People who aren't wise coaches or experienced do it because they don't know what to say. So you're a bit rah-rah and yeah, that's brilliant. And actually, all I did was phone someone or Google something. It's like overreacting. So I play it down a lot and I just say, that's really good, well done. How are you feeling about that? And if they say really great, then I'll up my, oh, that's great then. So tell me about how you're feeling. But I don't do the over cheerleading thing. The other thing is taking on clients who really need therapy rather than coaching. And when you're a new coach, you don't always know. The warning signs are there very quickly for me now. But if you didn't know, it could be that they might be borderline depression here, and you can't help that as a coach. They might have panic attacks. This is not for us. Phobias, serious kind of mental health problems. And people try to coach them. You're going to get into big trouble as the coach and for your client, because you can't coach people out of that. You need proper therapy. So I think those are the two main ones, being over enthusiastic Yeah, or taking hundreds and hundreds of notes on a client when really you've just got to be present. If you're taking, what you're going to do, read all these notes, and the next time the client says, I don't want to talk about what we talked about last week, I want to talk about an argument I had with my best friend. Oh, well, that's like 3 pages of notes I took. And anyway, you're supposed to have your chin up with your client, not, you're not on the analyst chair here on the sofa. You should be 100% present. So I think over note taking too many details, over complicating rather than just being with your client is another mistake a lot of new coaches make as well.
And I also wanted to ask, because we're closing in on like the final act of this as well. So I also just wanted to tie in a little bit of your education in the field too. So having accreditation in coaching, what surprised you or changed your perspective on it through having a formal education that maybe people who have just kind of, I guess, more gone in blind, I don't know how to really characterize it, but just gone directly from helping people publicly, setting up a platform, and just going off of their core experiences?
I think you have to get a certificate and accreditation. I have coached someone recently, and the indication was she was going to come on my course at the end of it, and then said, "I think I've got enough from our coaching for me to just be a coach now." My face must have been a mask. Usually, I'm quite composed with. I was like, the horror, the horror. It's like, no, you've had 6 hours. That's just dangerous for your clients and eventually for you. This isn't enough. She said, well, I can't do your course. Then do one where you are. It really frightens me that people do a 2-day weekend or a couple of hours or read something and now say I'm a coach because I was a hairdresser for 20 years and I've heard everything. No, that's not good enough. You've got to have a proper formal coaching education and it be accredited, so you know that you've got the ethical foundation stones of coaching behind you. But I always say to my students, the coaching tools are fabulous. It's like a paint box of colors, and you can paint the Sistine Chapel with it, with your paint box, or you can paint your front door. The creativity comes from the coach. We all have the same toolbox. You can bring it to life by being a creative coach, a kind of hand to hold coach, or a rocket fuel kick-ass coach, whatever kind of coach you want. Well, the toolbox is the same, and you have to learn them properly from a proper training board.
I definitely see where you're coming from. I mean, like I mentioned with my college program, is that a lot of all our professors were people who were still actively performing in the industry. They were writers, they were stand-up comedians, sketch performers, script writers, videographers. And and some of them were rather reluctant to have to get their teaching accreditation in order to formally be able to teach in a college program. And some of the justification for that, beyond what we're discussing here, which I totally understand and agree with, is also just that peace of mind that we are taking this seriously. This is a legitimate program. We are going to give people legitimate credit. There's going to be a degree. And just like many other college programs, you're not going to find any work out of it. So yeah, it was totally on board with a lot of the other college programs.
Yes, quite. And those who don't want to do it, I do wonder why. Are you frightened you might fail, or you're not going to be good enough? Or is your ego saying who I am is enough to be your teacher or your coach? It's not.
So I'll put myself in that position, and just so the audience understands, is I it is a little self-serving for me because I get to learn all this information. I get to meet the person. So I definitely get a lot out of this, and I want to be transparent about that. And after talking to a lot of coaches, it's the temptation to see, I have my own vast experience in media. Maybe a media coach could be an interesting niche for me. So I think for me, some of it actually is just the fact that like a lot of what got me to my position was by just teaching myself. I am a good self teacher. I've got 10 years of experience, and I don't have an sound engineering or anything like that. And yet I do make a living off of it. So I think for me, the concern with a formal education is just a matter of like, how do I be certain that it is legit and that it is as recognized as possible, and that it has, and then I'm not just going to some like fly by night program that is going to take my money and give me a certificate, but then it has And in fact, it's actually done me a disservice by having it because of how other people perceive that education. So that is as legitimate as the concern as I can express.
Yeah, I think you have to do your homework there and check the accreditation boards. The IAPC&M kind of chose me. They said, we'd like to, you to get your accreditation with us. And, I had to do all the exams and I had to look through all of my material. It took some time, but I like the fact that they were very helpful as well and equally stand for excellence in coaching. And I think in the UK, it's one of the only government approved accreditation boards. So I was very keen on that. But I will, from the other side of it though, a lot of coaches do get really hung up on accreditation and like, I've got to do everything. I'm only interested in the accreditation. Yes, it is 100% important to have it. That's without argument. If you think without it, you're never going to get a client, that is equally wrong. The clients look at your website, they look at your face, they look at your bio, they look at your packages. They're not searching through, can I see their diplomas, certificates and accreditation? Just like when you go to the dentist, you don't ask, can I see your degrees? Can you take my tooth out without hurting? That's all you want to know.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's why it's a bit dangerous. It's an unregulated industry. People can slip through the net, but mostly when it comes to selling your services, people will just buy you. But it really is 100% important to have on your website that you are accredited and a logo of that accreditation board as well.
I want to offer one more challenge to this to try to speak on behalf of anybody who's facing similar concerns. So your example with the dentist was a good one because there is a pretty physical element to having someone either clean a tooth, pull it out, or put barbed wire in, or whatever it is that they have to do. So, and the results are also quite immediate and quite clear. Now, testimonials can go a long way, but I think because it is a little bit more in that ethereal space where it is a lot about the spiritual side, the emotional side, it might not have the same immediate indicator of progress versus going to a mechanic, going to dry cleaners. So how would you respond to that particular challenge? How do you legitimize the results of it as best you can?
It's really difficult because my friend who's a photographer was saying people can see the results of her work immediately. Their clients say, great, they look good. Thank you, you did a good job. How can your clients say, yes, some obviously get aha moments, go on to write that book, get the job promotion, start their business. It's tangible, it's obvious, there's real proof. But others just say, I felt a bit more confident. That's a success too, but it's not as glamorous. It's not as, widescreen entertainment as, I run a marathon, I got $1 million business and I found the woman of my dreams or the guy of my dreams by using Carole Ann services. That might actually put a lot of people off because they think, I don't want that. I just want to be able to put my hand up in a meeting and put my point across without feeling embarrassed. That's also a success. So I don't ask many people for testimonials. I have quite a lot on there. But generally, it's a confidential service. So these are the people kind enough to say it was a great experience working with. But there's a lot of people who want to keep it quiet. And I made the mistake of sending a client a Christmas card once. was a footballer. And it's like, who's this Carole Ann? Look, she's a life coach. And I thought, I didn't think it's a confidential service. Some people don't even want to say they're using a coach. So they're not going to give you a testimonial because it's private.
That makes sense, especially for people who just are trying to maintain a public persona and reputation. So, and then there was one other thing that I just wanted to point out about it that I think is an important observation is while somebody, and this is the common theme that we've discussed on this episode today, but it's been brought up numerous episodes, is I think the indirect or lateral results, someone coming in for one issue, whereas like if somebody comes into a mechanic's garage and says, I just came in for an oil change, now you're telling me my brakes are shot and I need to fix the clutch on it, are you kidding me? Whereas like I think that same reaction just wouldn't happen so much, whereas like if someone comes in with one issue and then it turns out that, well, there's something else going on. So I think the idea that maybe people didn't quite get what they specifically wished for, but what they got was so much more profound is something more unique to the space.
I think you're right there. And I think the way we live now, we pay for things to change. We flick a button, we like or dislike, we order, and our groceries are here in 10 minutes. We want that kind of change for our psyches. We're very complex. The brain doesn't change like with a flip of a switch. So they come, but help me quickly get the confidence I need. That's not a quick thing. I haven't got a magic wand, but I can. And in the process, that's when the real change occurs, and they start to think, oh yeah, and it could be that, and I am doing that, and it could be my diet and the fact that I live on chocolate and coffee all day, and that's not helping. And some people do. I could hear the rustling in the background with one client. And what's that? Big bar of chocolate like this. I haven't got time to go shopping in the evening. That's her dinner. Okay, that's not going to help. But yes, they come for one thing. Maybe you ought to buy some salad and chicken or whatever it is and pasta and keep it in your fridge so you're not doing that every night. That changes things. One small thing leads to another. Self-esteem, feeling better, getting up earlier, might start thinking about exercising. Nothing to do with what she originally came for.
We do really need to unfortunately wrap this up, but I just want to say everything that we've talked about so far has resonated with me. And then I actually, inside baseball, I edit the content, so I get a whole other round to re-listen and pick up on things that I needed a second listen through. So I really appreciate what I get to do here. As far as your work goes and your platform goes, you've been in it for a good little while. So what I'm curious about is, like, do you have a vision for how you maybe see things changing or evolving in the next 5 years? And do you have a set of challenges right now? Like, you wish you were ranking more on Google, or you feel like you want to work on your social media platform? What do you feel like are some of your challenges right now?
Well, major challenges. I've got my Instagram and Facebook got hacked, and I can't get into.
You're
I've
not
got
the
my
first
Facebook.
person who's had that on the show.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate.
I've got my Facebook back, but I haven't got my Academy Instagram back. Now, the bottom line is I spoke to many IT people and they said, you might as well just start a new one. You go in a kind of Instagram, Facebook loop and you never get to speak to someone, and it's very difficult to get that back. That's frustrating. At least I didn't have to pay the cyber highwayman any money for doing it, although I had a long conversation with him about where his life was going. He wasn't expecting that from me. So that's frustrating. How I would like the industry to go, I would love children to have this at school as part of, noticing your thoughts. What are they, good or bad? Checking in with your mindset, your body. What are you really believing in? These are very simple, basic things that children are like sponges. They pick up really quickly. Get them early before the bad thinking starts.
Mm-hmm.
So build self-esteem, build confidence, build quiet assertiveness early on. And you could do this with a little journal each day and something that the teacher could do. I'd love to see that. That would change the world, basically. Another business challenge I have is I want to get my academy into Italy and to the coast of Britain, to in person. There's nothing like it in Italy, apparently. I'm sure someone will say yes, there is, because you've got an international audience. But I'd like to have a coaching academy in Italy, because they're beginning to come around to this idea of increased personal development, and it'd be nice to be one of the first there. So a plan to expand, definitely.
I could put you in touch with Gino Parati. We spoke with him, and he also has interest in setting up work in Italy. So if you want, I can connect you two.
That sounds good. It's good to chat.
Yeah. The last thing that I just have to the last part of this is in order to formally wrap this up, I do want to give you the floor one more shot, just in case there was any other lingering thoughts or reactions or observations or points you wanted to make, and then otherwise just let the audience know whereabouts they can find you online.
So the easy one is to Google me, Carole Ann Rice, and then you'll get my one-to-one coaching business come up. And you're right, please read my bio. It is long, but at the bottom of it, there's a golden egg which says, if you come this far, you get a half hour free with me. So when I get these emails, I read to the bottom and I got the golden egg. It's great because it's an inspirational story about, anyone can relate to. There's a bit of magic in there as well. If you're thinking of becoming a life coaching student anywhere in the world, Google purecoachingacademy.com. And we do these online 8-week courses. Getting people from Hollywood, Italy, Spain, Germany join us. And it's a fabulous community. The people you meet on the course are much part of the course is the material. It's a lovely supportive, empathetic, and kind community of friends that you'll meet for life there. So, but I just want to thank you for having me on your show, Joseph. You're an interesting interviewer. You're thoughtful, and you've got your own unique style. I'm really liking it.
I just want to take a second to take that in. I thank you for that. It's been an incredible journey for me, and I try my best to stay humble and to show gratitude for the work that I do. And as I say, I do review my own material, so I look through them and I go, man, that was good, but there's still a lot of stuff that I need to clean up on, like verbal flubs and little things and little technical stuff like that. So your feedback and your reinforcement helps me quite a bit. And so I thank you for it. And likewise, you've shared a lot of great information today. And I do want to try to be a little more challenging with my material too. I don't want to just throw softballs. So in the interest of that, some of the questions that I asked you today were a little more challenging and just about the legitimization of the platform and how to really where to build where that trust comes from. And so you handle them expertly. I couldn't have thought of a better person to ask. And so thank you for your expertise today.
Thank you very much. I love the fact that you're kind and compassionate with yourself when you do make errors, when you look over things and think, I could have done it better. You give yourself unconditional self-forgiveness and compassion. That's what it needs. That's what creates success. Have another go. That's how you bounce back.
Absolutely. And with that, we are done for today. This is and has been the Impactful Coaching Podcast. If anybody has any feedback or insights, or if you feel like you want to take a shot at being on the program, you can always email Joseph at impactfulcoachingpodcast.com. It is spelled the way you think. And with that, our endeavor is to whatever space it is you're working in, whether you're in media or you're public speaking or you're in life coaching or fitness or health or whatever it is, our goal is to make sure that through our work, you are impactful while you're at it.